Welcome back, everyone, to Rabbit Hole Stories. And today it is, fortunately, unfortunately, only me. I don't know, it depends on the listeners, because Ian unfortunately had a mishap at work and he had to stay longer at the Fiat mine. But nevertheless, we hit record, and today we have the lovely Flo Montoya on. Flo, how has your day been so far?
Hi, thank you so much for having me. My day has been great working for Bitcoin.
That's always a good start to the conversation. Talking about work, we'll definitely get into the different things you do. But how does your day look like nowadays? Because I know you're involved with Panties for Bitcoin. You do your artwork. How do you split the two things?
Yeah, well, I'm not very organized, so my first goal is to just wake up very early in the morning, try to wake up and just start like I sit every day. I have like a how do you call like a board where I write stuff in my wall, and I try to keep up with everything because sometimes I feel like especially Bitcoin Twitter moves so fast. Um, I just and I have to go through. I go through Lovis Bitcoin account like in the morning, checking everything out, checking the memes, and then I talk to people like to George, or for example, I check what's happening with Panties for Bitcoin, and then I talk to Pablo, and I try to always have some time to produce my art, but that's not always possible. So what I'm trying to do right now is that I'm establishing, like, for example, every Wednesday I go for 3 hours to the screen print workshop, or yeah. So I that's forcing me to do that in that time. So, and I cannot schedule meetings in that time, everything like that. So that's helping me not be late with my art production.
Yeah, and it's a bit unfortunate that we could move the recording a bit further back because then one of your artworks would actually hang behind me. But I mean, what you do with your art, I discovered you. Was that about a year ago when you started doing the first free Ross prints, the special ones, not the white paper ones? And I was like, wow, that's an amazing artwork because I know the process you use there. It's quite a lot to get a picture to look this way and do it this way. So how did you come about actually getting into Bitcoin art?
Oh, Bitcoin art. Well, that's because I come from an art background. So I studied arts for many years. I studied in a classical art school, and I was really, really in love with technique and with like the learning process and the this slow kind of art. And then I went into university because my parents were like, okay, very cool, but you have to have a degree. And then I said like, okay, but I have to study arts. And I continue to study arts. And that was actually a very good decision that I'm thankful for because it
Mhm.
helped me have like a more complete view of arts. And there I think I got like, I could put more meaning into the materials you use, or to think about other stuff without leaving out the things that I've already learned, like beauty and skills, or trying to develop your skills. And in that process, I was living with my parents. That's very regular here in Chile. Like when you're studying, you live with your parents. Um,
It's the same in
uh,
Europe.
yeah,
And I mean, you studied art, right? So like, it's
yeah,
hard to it's hard to make a living
yeah. Maybe
immediately.
that's yeah, yeah. Yeah.
I'm just
So
making the joke because my brother will study art as well, so I kind of got like,
no, it's
yeah.
absolutely true.
I always have to behave at family gatherings. My mom usually looks at me and goes like, "Don't mention it," because with me it was like, "Do you want to study economics, maybe, or something like this?" I go like, "Oh yeah, why not?" But you're 18, you're kind of gullible, and with him it's like, "I want to study art." So, but yeah, continue, please.
Yeah. Um, so while I was in that process, actually my dad got orange pilled by himself. That was super cool. We had heard about Bitcoin before and dismissed it at some point. It was like magic internet money, like the first time you encounter it is super weird. And then, well, he works for a German company, so we always had this thing of moving money around, like, and he said like maybe we can try this Bitcoin thing to avoid the banks because they're always messy and they take part of your salary. And he actually tried it, worked perfectly, super fast, and he actually gave himself like a 10% raise. but just by not using the banks. And so there is where I like started learning about Bitcoin, but through him and through my brother, who was also becoming like a Bitcoiner at the time. He was studying software engineer, and he was more like very passionate about like technical aspects of it. And I'm very blessed because in my family there was little to none shitcoinery. Like for me, like when I started to understand more about this, when I started to ask my own questions, they were already like Bitcoin maxis. So
Yep.
actually, I think my dad never even, I don't know if he ever bought a shitcoin. Like he was super focused, and from the beginning, I remember this was about the time when the block war was happening, you know, the block height war, sorry. And he was like, okay, let's see what happens. If Bitcoin wins, then I guess we can like trust this, and we can move on with this new tool. And it did. So he was very, I don't know, like I admired that from him, like this ability to see a bit beyond, you know. And from that point on, I was only focusing on like ending my studies and stuff. And when it was years later, like in 2020, when I started doing the Bitcoin art after I finished the I don't know how it's called, but it's like your last kind of exam. It's like the big exam you have to present, and it started really, really slowly. It's like I think art was for me a way to understand Bitcoin and to put it into these little images. It was like the way I could ask questions. Like I'm not that good with words, so I was like doing this, and then having so many conversations with my family, and then my dad, they started pushing me the books, like you can ask the questions, but do the work, start reading for yourself. And yeah, that was like the beginning.
That's super interesting because that fulfills one of the use cases we always hear in the Bitcoin ecosystem that mainly, countries who are, I wouldn't say cut off from the Western banking world, but, Chile, if you go into the history with the IMF and stuff, you actually see that like, oh, they're also enslaved by, the credits and loans and everything that goes out there. So he was actually using Bitcoin as a remittance. And has he ever since been living on a Bitcoin standard as well, or do you guys convert into the local currency to get stuff done?
No, no, no. Who would prefer Chilean shitcoin over Bitcoin?
Yeah, I
Like
mean,
no.
sometimes people need to live, right?
No, of course. We have to live and we have to pay our bills, and that must be
Mm,
paid in enough in the local currency. And yeah, um, but we try to be more in the Bitcoin standard, the more, however we can, you know.
yeah,
Yeah. Hmm.
yeah. And how is the Bitcoin adoption going in Chile? Is it where you can also use Bitcoin in a daily life, or is it still that you have to convert, you have to orange pill?
No, sadly, it's very slow. I have my
Mm,
theories about it.
hmm.
Um,
Yeah, please share
I
them.
think, I think, well, there were like two, like first there was like this event that at some point, I don't really remember what year it was, all exchanges that were operating in Chile got their bank accounts shut. So customers
Oh,
couldn't like send money from one day to another. So what they did is they had to came together and they had to sue the banks together in a collective sue, so that and the judge said, okay, while we do this process, this you he forced the banks to reopen the accounts. So they had their bank accounts shut for 1 month, and this was very public. And I think people got the feeling that, oh, this Bitcoin thing is really like a scam and
yeah.
shady, and the common public was on favor of the banks. And
Mm,
this had this effect, like the bad, you say, publicity. And also no new company could enter, so there wasn't more competition, you know, because
mm.
if the bank is being sued by the exchanges for shutting the account, why would he open a new account with another exchange, you know? So I think that was very important. And also, I think that in Chile we had like a special kind of we were in like in a place where you are not that poor, maybe you are not suffering that much, you are not in that much pain that you have to look for an alternative, or you'll starve, I don't know, like you're struggling so hard that it forces you to find an alternative. But also we were in that privilege that people would look for an alternative to, like, oh, I will look this investment, you know. So we were like in the middle, like kind of surviving but not that bad. And I think that might also been something that might have slowed down adoption here. But I think now it's actually growing. It's getting better.
Yeah, it's okay. Now I can test my Spanish. That would be Operación Estrangulamiento, I think is choke point in Spanish or something like this. In Chile.
Estrangulación.
Yeah.
Ex-
What is Operation Choke Point in Spanish? Now my brain wants, let's see, Operación Estrangulamiento. I don't know if that's
Estrangulamiento. Ah,
true. Yeah, we'll see if that
sounds
sticks
weird.
up. Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, people said it. Must be true. So you potentially had that choke point, and that obviously slows everything down because it's hard to get into the on-ramps. But for you guys who already had the exposure to Bitcoin, and from the sounds of it, your rabbit hole story really was with your family, and you ever stuck with it. If you compare like what you know about Bitcoin and the way the monetary system works now, and you see everyday people in Chile, what are your experiences there? Is it good? Is it bad? Do you think people need more education, more help, or because you're sort of in that? It's not a third world country or a high inflation country, but you still, I mean, we still have inflation and still these struggles.
Yeah.
What could be the benefit for Bitcoin for Chileans?
I mean, so much. Well, there is a lot of inequity, you would say. Like, there is a lot of poor people that would benefit. But I also see that the inflation is getting worse and worse. I think it started to get worse in 2019, because we had like a lot of social movement happening here, and a lot of strikes and things like that. And I think they printed a lot of money to cover that up, like to pay the bonus and blah, blah, blah. And then actually COVID came, which was good for that government because it stopped you could send everyone home because, oh, COVID. So they stopped, it actually stopped the strikes and stuff. But then again, with COVID, every government printed so much money out. So I think we are starting to see higher levels of inflation, or the repercussion of this. I don't trust how they measure inflation here. I don't know if you can trust it anywhere, but I feel it. You know, you can feel it, and people feels it, and they express it. And well, there have been many decisions that have been very weird. You know, when this, I don't know how is it called, but like this, like snake effect, like when, like yeah. So when you do something expecting an outcome, but then it's like something you didn't expect. So I think we're seeing many weird outcomes right now here. So I think even though, for example, we have a very good healthcare system if you compare with other countries, and the quality of doctors are really, really good. Like doctors from Chile can go anywhere in the world and they will pass the test usually. There are other problems like in the organization, you know. So yeah, I think I hope not, but I think that people are going to start to struggle more and more these upcoming years.
Yeah, and I mean this is why we have Bitcoin as an opt-out. So you got started introduced to your family, you started reading the books, you put in the proof of work, you started getting engaged into the Bitcoin art. And with your Bitcoin art specifically, you do have the prints, you also have the Free Ross project, if we could talk about this, and you also have the rings. Can you maybe give an insight into what you want to do with your art and how you basically also come up with the ideas?
Yeah. So yeah, I'm not. I always shift from one thing to another. So for example, when I wanted to do the rose print, I had the idea for like a year, and I actually tried it out with I don't know, like computer, and I was thinking how to do this. And then I looked at it and it was like, I have to learn how to screen print. I didn't know that. I had tried it out in the university, and I actually thought like, I'm never going to do this technique. This technique is super hard, like it's not for me, blah, blah, blah. But then I started talking with a friend. He helps me with this process, and he teaches me every session. And he was like, no, this is totally doable. Let's do it. And then with that piece, I really fell in love with the technique. Like I could see it from another perspective. Like everything has its hard part, but it has also its beautiful parts. And sometimes you're not prepared to learn it. I don't know. It's timing, and that's why I started doing the screen prints. And I'm actually working in a new collaboration of screen prints that I hope to be able to show this year. It's going to be very cool because I don't know if I can say who am I collaborating with, because I don't want to give everything up. But so this person is going to work the paper in another country and then ship it to me, and then I'll print it, and then we'll ship it again, and like break the borders with the collaboration and try to present a cool project. And I'm very happy about it. And well, I also I also draw. I don't know if you saw the drawings, but I also so those are like always an original piece, and I try to sell them. Like I try not to keep them, because otherwise then it's too hard. Like the best thing is to be done and then try to sell it right away. And so what I've been doing with those is actually I have now a Geekle prints. Like this is our very high quality prints that are a series of prints, so they're limited, and I'm working with proof of ink for those. So maybe like in a romantic way, I can like see the drawing again, and maybe more people can see it, because usually what happens is when you sell this art goes to private collections, and they're never shown again, And yeah, and for the ring project, I was talking with this friend, so that's also a collaboration. She's a friend of mine. She also Chilean, and she's a jewelry artist. And we always talk like, yeah, let's do something together. And in this process, she was going deeper and deeper the rabbit hole, and we were talking about Bitcoin and art and everything. And I said, like, would you like to do something like a Bitcoin piece? Because she has this idea like, no, I'm not an artist. I only do jewelry. And I was like, this is art. You are an artist. And we started just talking about it, and it made sense for us, like this symbol of a seal. I don't know, it was like we constructed the image together, and it made sense for us. And it's also a limited project. I tried to put a limit into everything because scarcity,
Yeah, makes sense.
Yeah, and well, what would be new maybe is I really, really want to go back into oil painting, and I hope I get to do it this year.
Yes, and I think Bitcoin art as a general fulfills a very important step in the cycle of adoption, because for a long time, if you had Bitcoin art or Bitcoin merch, it was just a cheap print from a Chinese sweatshop with like the Bitcoin logo. And I would say since 2020, probably you start seeing merch. Like I'm wearing the Lightning Store shirt now. You do see the prints, projects like yours coming up. But you also see, when was that? I've met a guy recently who does custom neon signs, and he has a whole collection just for Bitcoiners. And he lives here in Austria. He doesn't post it on social. He has neon signs is, if you want to start a new project, apparently very profitable, because it's easy for him to buy and like very easy to make a lot of margins on the sell. But he was like, I want to do something for the Bitcoiners. And, he does it at a reduced rate if you pay in sats and all of these things. And my opinion is the more we have this out there, the better. For example, if friends will visit my place once it's finally furnished and stuff, if they come in, they will see a Bitcoin art piece. There will be art behind me. I'll try to have these little nudgets. And I think it's so important to have also a Bitcoin pop culture, if that makes sense, with musicians, with artists and everything, which is not always easy, because you then go against a little bit of the, Bitcoin is money and like it should be a monetary base and not these things. But how are you trying to influence the Bitcoin opinion with your art?
I mean, how I see it is, okay, Bitcoin is money. So what is
Mm-hmm.
money? um, Money, you can understand it as the base layer of a society. Like, when would you consider that a group of humans is not a pack and it is a society, you know?
Mm-hmm.
You could say it's when they start doing art, because animals don't do art. You could say it's when they start trading, and like even these small trades, the beginning of the idea of money also, that could be. So I think it's very in the beginning and a very intrinsic part of humanity.
Mm-hmm.
So as I see it, if we have sick money, this will shape our society, and we can see when you have an illness, you see, yeah, like you see the wounds, but you probably don't know what disease it is, you know, sometimes. So I believe it's like that. Like you see some wounds, and people don't think it has to be related to the sick money,
Mm-hmm.
but I see it in that way. I think that, for example, as many people could say, we are living in a very consumist society, and this is capitalism, and blah, blah, blah. But then when you understand Bitcoin, you know that Bitcoin is the opposite of consumism. Like you will have low time preference, and why would you give up your Bitcoin and stuff like that? So I think this base layer will shape everything, including our
Mm-hmm.
culture, the way we relate to each other, uh, how we present ourselves, like everything. So I think it's impossible not to have art related to it. Like it's natural to everything. So important.
Yes, and if you look at every revolution that has taken place in the last 200 years, there has always been a culture aspect to it. The hippies had their hippie music, and I would say they were successful in their fight against, the Vietnam War and all of these things. I mean, the Beatles, the Rolling Stones, all of them, David Bowie, they fought against the system in a way with their art and transmitted that thought to it. And why should we do the same if we have an art piece at home, or even if you're wearing a ring, if you're wearing a shirt, all of these things. And speaking of wearing stuff, you are also, can we say, the public face of Panties for Bitcoin? Is that fair? Yeah, nice.
Uh,
And
and I'm also
how
the
did you get
public
started
face
there?
of Lois. So I'm trying to be the public face of Panties for Vegan, and because the very very cool family that runs that company, they have to do everything. Like this is a small company, and they are having so much work and so much stuff to do, and trying to grow the company and all. So maybe this was the role that they felt least comfortable with.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, this is an amazing company. Of course I will be very happy to be part of it and to represent and to tell their story and all of that. And that came after I started working before with Love is Bitcoin with George, where I also give life to the character of Livy, which
Mm-hmm.
is not a real person. And there's a team of people working in that project. And through them, I knew Panties for Bitcoin, and then everything got, I don't know, a bit mixed, but it's a happy mix.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. I actually got I mean, I wouldn't say a lot of shit, but I won like the raffle you did in Lugano.
Ah, true.
Because I was like, if I win, okay, I have a friend who has a very hard time of understanding how you can buy something real with Bitcoin. So to her, it's just like, digital and all these things. And then I saw the raffle on Instagram. I was like, I'm going to try it, and I'm going to give her like the panties. And obviously, when you posted it and stuff, the floodgates opened, and I got like WhatsApps and stuff going like, "Oh yeah, okay, you're gonna wear it yourself or something." I go like, first of all, no, I'm just too big to wear anything of this style. And secondly, this actually helped in sort of soft orange pilling her, because she went like, "Oh, so it's a real good." And I think we talked afterwards after taking the picture, and you also explained that it's a family that produces everything, has like 30 years experience in the fashion industry and the underwear industry. So it was a good story to give to her, and another perfect example of why to do it. But with Panties for Bitcoin, I'm interested in one take from your end, because often if I go on Twitter and I see the posts, and they are provocative, what Panties for Bitcoin puts out, and Love is Bitcoin. And I hear a lot of female Bitcoiners go, "Oh, this is offensive. This paints us in a different picture." And I kind of go like, I don't think this is the message. And even if it is at this point, women get famous on Instagram for showing their boobs all the time and having OnlyFans. So like, wouldn't it also be part of the Bitcoin culture to have something like this? But how do you go about this whole thing if someone goes like, "Oh, offensive or sexist or whatever the crap they say"?
No, we're just taking it like we're just having fun. We're just being silly. We won't enter into a fight or anything. Everyone can have their own opinion, but I don't think we are offending anyone. I mean, if I take a picture, I'm showing up. For example, sometimes I take pictures for Panties for Bitcoin, and a friend of mine, she's posing and she does yoga and she's like super cool. I have her permission to share that picture,
Yep.
so who is offended? Like, it's not like I'm stealing someone else's picture and doxing them to the internet. So I don't know. Also, it's super weird because these are characters, so characters have their own personality. So my real personality is nothing to do with the character, and I'm okay with it. Like, I don't understand how could someone be so angry about it. But yeah, we're just trying to have fun, and actually I'm confident because what we're selling is quality. What we're selling you with Panties for Bitcoin, like Panties for Bitcoin has like three main, I would say, like rocks where it stands, and it is family, Bitcoin, and quality. So it's very beautiful, and it's people who have been like, they have their own knowledge and they're putting it to the service of Bitcoin. So everyone uses underwear today, or mostly, I would say. So
I mean, you're speaking to Bitcoiners. There's probably a few who don't, just to stack more sats, but they're very much a small group.
yeah. Well, I hope when they start using underwear, I hope they choose Bitcoin underwear.
Yeah, that's true.
Like, and what we're selling, we know we are selling to Bitcoiners, so that's why quality is so important. Everything is produced in Italy, and with the technology that it will allow your skin to breathe, but and all of that, like, won't harm your skin. You won't have like allergies and stuff like that, because that's one of our main concerns in the company. So we are selling you panties that will actually last many years, like much more than what you regularly buy. Same for the men, because we have a men underwear now. So it's the same. Like, you will have a high quality product that will allow you not to have to buy again. I don't know, like next year and next year.
Yes, and I think having a good quality product is so important, especially for Bitcoiners. And when you like mentioned the three rocks, this is actually a lot of the qualities I think a lot of Bitcoiners also cherish. So having a good family life or relationship, obviously having Bitcoin, and also having the quality that lasts a long time, because long time horizon, planning for the future, all of these things. So it's actually a no-brainer. But yeah, I mean, also with the Love is Bitcoin stuff, you guys just post funny memes, and if you don't really get these jokes, I think you're a bit wrong on the internet, because I've seen way worse stuff on like Reddit and such. So this is even easy. And what I always love is if people then go like, "Oh, it's run by a dude. He's called George." I go like, "It takes you 2 minutes to Google and find this out. So like, it's not a
I mean,
secret or
it's
anything."
open. It's,
Yeah,
we never talk like in the account, like George Hassett, founder of Love is Bitcoin, in his
yeah.
profile, like he's not hiding. I don't know. And we had a post of, like, when I started with the company, we had a pin post for many months where, like, introduce me, like, this is Flo, this is new to the team, she will give life to Libby, blah blah blah. And then the post was there, and people sometimes did write like, this is a dude, and it's everything. I don't know, like, maybe they're stealing my image, like, and I was, I'm tagged there, like, I'm allowing this. Yeah, okay, no problem. I mean, people want to look for problems everywhere sometimes. It's okay, like, you can express what you feel. We always answer people. Like, I mean, there's a lot of posts if sometimes we
Yeah.
don't see something, but if we see it, we will answer it. And if someone wants to know the story behind the project and why it started and what's the main, um, what we do and all of that, we have no problem explaining that. Yeah.
Yeah, and then at the end of the day, how many of them still like the images, and engage with it? So this is then the second thing. Like, you're offended by it, but you still give the like, probably because the girl is hot in the image, or like the meme is funny, or something like this. So yeah, I think it's also healthy to sometimes be a bit silly and not take everything too serious. And to give this back to like the culture thing and to art, this is what makes it super interesting, right? You can have a different world view, but you can express it through Bitcoin. So why should we bother to like sticking to one narrative? I mean, living in Chile, you're obviously part of South America. This is pretty obvious for anyone who's bad at geography. Slight dig at the Americans, they usually are, because they don't know where other countries are in the world. If you go to conferences, you travel quite far. You do a lot of stuff to get the Bitcoin message out there. And, sometimes I feel like, I don't know if it's just a part in the journey we're at, but Bitcoiners sometimes really hold on to their sats. They're not like using them to pay for art and such. How do you deal about this? Have you seen a pleasant surprise that Bitcoiners actually spend their sats on art, or is it a bit different from parts of the world to other parts?
Yeah, the special thing about art, I think sometimes it just touches your heart and then you don't wanna let go. For example, I was recently in Madeira for Bitcoin Atlantis, and I sold one of the rings
Nice.
because I had like a couple, and the guy was like telling me like I don't want to buy this from you. Like I don't want to give you my sats, but I have no other option. Look what you're making me do. So yeah, it happens, and of course I have had the other experience. Like I was talking to a guy in last year in Bitcoin Amsterdam, and super nice guy, and he was like, "I love your stuff, like keep it up, girl," but I'm not going to buy anything from you. Maybe let's talk in a year. And I was like, if I'm still alive in a year, like if everyone thinks like you, then in a year I won't be making any art. But he was selling. He was talking in a very friendly, fun way. But
Yep. Yep.
and I did tell him in my mind like, yeah, it happens. It happens. Everything is possible, but I don't know about I don't know about selling anything. Like some other stuff might be different, but with art, yeah, it's just if it speaks to you, if it's cool to like let go a bit, like yeah.
Yes, and I also blame some of the events sometimes because, for example, it's a bit controversial now with the Bitcoin Magazine stuff and the Madex thing, but I like if I go to a conference and there is the talks. Sadly, if you're long enough in Bitcoin, like you don't really go for the talks, I think. Maybe you go for like one or two, but you've heard most of them. But you go to like meet friends, maybe talk to one of the exhibitors, buy some merch. But now you see more and more art galleries popping up as well, or just portions of the conference for these art projects. And sadly, there's still conferences who go like, no, Bitcoin is hardcore money and we're not doing this yet. If you now have the opportunity to speak to these people, what would you say? How do you convince them that, like, no, you do need an art gallery and you need to give this platform also to the artists?
You know what? I wouldn't even, because if they don't see why this is important, they'll do a crappy job probably.
Yeah.
So the art display won't be cool. The user experience won't be cool. Like if you go and attend there and you're expecting to see the artist that you have been following in the Twitter, and then you get there and it's not, and it's like, I don't know, something that's not up to what you expected. You won't have like the experience you wanted, and then like everything gets a bit, I don't know, like in a wrong place. So if they truly want to do it, what I will say is for the people who are in the middle, like they don't really want to, but then they want to, so they do it, blah blah. Like go deeper. Like if you're doing this, then provide a cool space for art. Like consider it in your budget. Like artists will come. Like you don't even have to pay them to display anything. You can charge them for whatever they sell. Like everyone will accept that. but the place where you display the art, how you present it to the world, if you put the art near, I don't know, like the company's hall, it's really weird for people. Like the experience, like I'm getting sold, I'm getting like
Yeah.
you go there and it's like, and then art, like it doesn't go well together. It's not a very cool dialogue. So maybe have like a separate place where you can have like the bazaar, the art, the books, like have the culture maybe together so that people can have like an experience they can actually enjoy and that makes sense to them. Yeah, maybe that would be
Yeah.
like and also if you can hire a real artist to do the curatorial for you, it will look better, if you have like if you for example you say whatever your criteria is, yeah, you define the criteria. I want Bitcoin only, I want, I don't know, whatever, physical art or digital art or whatever you want, and then you define that and then you stick by it, it will be better.
Yeah. Yes, and I'm also sometimes I feel like a lot of these events, because I've been to quite a lot of conferences over the years, it's a bit always the same. And I remember saying it to, I think it was either in Prague or in Riga, I can't remember, one of the two, where I said, don't do like, oh, this is the art corner, There's like a waiting lounge, for example. Hang up a few art pieces. Just add the QR code. By the way, you can buy this. Or there's a link to like the official store. You can even like hang up prints and have a booth where they can buy it and such. But like make it a bit more accessible.
Yeah.
Because I think it's also a selling point for the conference at the end of the day. You then display this art and it makes it a bit more familiar, because most of these conferences are just like an empty room with a lot of chairs, merchants, and that's it. And maybe some coffee you can pay with sats or some beer or something. So yeah, having that integrated I think is a big selling point.
Yeah, I also had the idea, for example, but no one took it. I don't know if it's a bad idea.
There's nothing as bad ideas.
That they always have like a lot of screens, a lot of like, and most of the time they're not using it, like in between the talks or whatever. So I don't know. It's not that hard to coordinate and to have like an image of all the art displayed in the place. For example, a QR code directly to the artist information or the auction if you're gonna have an auction. So when someone is like waiting for the call, the talk, you could see maybe pretty images of Bitcoin art or stuff like that, like around the place, like make it more like yeah, together, like you said, maybe have it more in the places where the people are, like resting areas or yeah.
I'm interested in your takes. If we talk about art, I have a lot of friends who got into, let's call it crypto in 2018, 2017, bull run, crashes. But for some reason they stayed. And a lot of them first got into like the whole Ethereum community, then into like, I don't know, Solana and whatever's hot. And they were making money with their art through NFTs and these things. And now with the whole ordinal stuff, they moved over to Bitcoin and they finally realized, oh, this is a completely different beast. Like this is not centralized by a foundation who's now getting sued by a state authority or whatever. This is basically not a ripoff with these marketplaces. I can use some stuff of Bitcoin, and without judging, like I know the ordinals debate is a big one, but do you think stuff like this can attract artists into Bitcoin and then help them understand what Bitcoin is? Or do you see it as a negative if people can use this?
The way I see adoption is you have to do the work yourself either way. It doesn't really matter why you ended up here, of course, but I don't think that, like, I don't think you would expect, I don't know, an architect to find out about Bitcoin through architecture or whatever, a psychologist to find out, that could happen, but I don't think we are only talking about this with art. So maybe there is a question there, like, why? And then it's because it's confusing and people don't know what art is and people don't know what money is and people don't know what NFTs are, so when you don't have these definitions in your head, I guess the line kind of blurs up. I have, like I told you before, like I have my own opinion about this stuff. I personally don't like them. I don't like tokens in general. And I haven't seen yet a use case for ordinals that makes sense to me. So that's why my art is only physical right now. Um, I'm not so judgy to say that, or like too proud, or what is the word? Like, I wouldn't say that I have the absolute truth about this stuff and that I know everything. But there comes a point in life when maybe you can't wait to know everything and you have to take a decision. So I would say I would prefer someone to come to Bitcoin it's because of other reason,
Yeah.
because it has value, because he's starting to understand that fiat is slavery, and then he actually also happens to be an artist, like
Yep.
it
Yep.
happens with other professions.
Yeah, and if you really think about it, so I sat down with these friends because they were dead hook on ordinals, and I said, okay, the only use case I maybe see is inscribing information onto the most immutable ledger in the world if it's important information. Take an example with the Julian Assange warlocks. Having them on the Bitcoin blockchain is actually quite badass. So like I go like, okay, that's cool, but like still it's not the use case displayed in the white paper or anything, but it gives me an option to orange pill these people and tell them, you may start with the art, but there's so much more to this, and read this book and this book and this book, because you have to put in the proof of work. But they at least understand it maybe in their own way a bit, and it makes the transition a bit easier. So this is why I'm always like, I don't want to like judge people or shit on people for like being pro ordinals or against. So I'm trying to be in the middle and go like, hey, let's all stick together. We're still in this for the same reasons, right? And not kill each other over, I don't know, butt pics on the blockchain. But yeah, it's definitely an interesting thought. And in a way, when you were explaining like you don't like the tokenizations and stuff, if I buy my art piece from you, let's say you have a limited 21 print collection, I buy this with Bitcoin. Isn't this like the ultimate NFT? Because like I own the art piece at home. You getting paid in Bitcoin is the reward. It's the exchange we had. And to me, this is at least okay, because also like art and stuff, but this is more valuable than having it digitally somewhere where yeah, I mean, you can have the right click save, and then everyone has it. So I think in a way, yes, it's cumbersome to then explain to people the difference between what is the Bitcoin use case in terms of money and maybe in terms of an NFT. But if this hooks them in and I can then show them that they can do so much more, it's actually not a hard step to buy an ordinals or have that collection and then do a physical collection and get paid in Bitcoin as well. But that's just some rambling on the top of my head. Last question before we get into the ending part of the whole conversation. If I count this correctly, you have your art business, you have Panties for Bitcoin, you have Love is Bitcoin, these 3 layers. Do you want to do more? Is there any other project in mind you have?
No, it's I mean, for some months last year I had to do more because I had to mine more fiat.
Yep.
But luckily everything is starting to move and to be better. Well, I have so much support from my family as well. Actually, I get to go to these conferences because they're helping me, and I hope to be able to repay everything. But yeah, it's so I cannot take more. Like,
Yep.
and what I'm trying to do is to focus more in my art. Like, I gave myself at least a year to really focus on this and produce more and to show more and to make this effort to travel and to connect with people. And I'm in that process right now. So I have a lot of art projects like going on, like this collaboration I told you. I'm planning on another one but okay. I'm also planning on this new oil paintings, and that's super scary because I haven't painted in like many years. Um, and I have, for example, just launched it, I don't know, a couple of weeks ago, I think, stamp seed plate. So they have now special plates with artists. Mine is number 2. and they are planning on having more. And so now you can save your words in a beautiful art decorated plate, and maybe have art in your treasure.
Nice. So,
Yeah.
and I just love how Bitcoin companies and the whole community at the end of the day collaborate. And yeah, you're right. It's actually nicer to have a good-looking plate than just an ugly steel plate somewhere in your house or undisclosed area where you guys keep your seats.
I mean, if you're thinking on generational wealth, and this plate might go from one hand to another from generation, it might be cool to have a beautiful, cool one that you like. I don't know. Might be
Yeah.
something to think about.
Yeah, most definitely. We try to end each of our episodes with a little bit of a challenge for our guests. It's not a hard challenge, I hope, or at least so far we haven't had a guest that couldn't do it. And we want to prove the saying that all roads lead back to Bitcoin. And what we'll usually do is I will now tell you a word or a phrase, and you have to come up with a way to relate this back to Bitcoin. And we're talking about art. You mentioned it a few times now. The word of the day for you would be oil. How does oil relate back to Bitcoin? It can be any sort of oil, the oil in the sea or whatever, or the oil to paint.
Yeah, I have two thoughts. One will be oil painting, of course, because that's in my head all the time now. And I'm hoping to have more Bitcoin only oil paintings to show. And also, I'm going down this new food rabbit hole of like the quality of your food, and many people has before. I haven't read Fiat Food yet, but I want to read that one. And I learned so much about the importance of oil in your food intake, even more so than if you eat or don't eat sugar, which I think it's like really bad. But even if you eat sugar, the most important thing is oil and fat. And now I'm learning about I don't know how to say it in English, but it's like omega-3 maybe.
Yeah, it's omega-3, yeah.
Yes. Okay. And yeah, so I would say Bitcoin has led me into the food oil rabbit hole.
Nice,
Maybe.
nice. And you convert that, it goes both ways then. Cool. Flo, it was a pleasure having you on the podcast. If people want to find out more about your artwork or you in general, where can they find you?
My website is ungovernable.store. And you can also always follow me in social media. I'm Flo Montoya. And you can talk to me and send me a DM and we can chat.
Perfect. I'll make sure to link everything in the description below. Thanks for your finite time and also for the finite time of our listeners. And as always, stay curious.